Good morning, everyone. We want to thank you so much for tuning into your Monday Earth Day edition of Wasatch Weekends. I'm your host, Maddie Evans, and I love getting to spend my mornings waking up with you, and especially to celebrate a great day like today, which is Earth Day. We've got a great show in store for you. We're going to be making some fabulous cookies to celebrate this wonderful day, and then we're going to talk with someone who has created an excellent podcast for you to get some great information on how maybe you could be a little bit kinder to our Mother Earth. But let's take a look at that local weather forecast right now. Welcome back to the show. There's no better way to celebrate Earth Day than making some tribute cookies to Earth Day. Now, Kim had some fun decorating some cookies in the kitchen, so let's take a look what she came up with.
I love celebrating our climate and this beautiful earth that allows us to do all of the fun things indoors, outdoors, and just healing for the soul. So we're going to make some Earth Day cookies to celebrate and honor the earth. Let's take a look at what to make it with. So easy. We've got food dye, sprinkles, butter, eggs, and this is the best part, sugar cookie mix. So this is one of the more simple recipes that you can do to make a fun and festive cookie. So we'll go ahead and get started. I've got the Betty Crocker sugar cookie mix. Really doesn't matter what brand you use though, but you want to make sure that you've got about 17.5 ounces of the cookie mix, which is exactly what we have here. We've preheated our oven to 375 degrees. So you want to make sure that it's good and hot when you put these cookies in, because then they'll bake easily. And the best part about this is we're making a drop cookie, which means you don't have to have it perfectly proportionate. You can just kind of smash it all together and make it look like the earth. Very excited to get started. So ripping up in my package, that's the simple sugar cookie mix. Very easy. Betty Crocker makes a classic one. It's pretty great. We'll go ahead and pour that in here. You can see it's a nice light and fluffy mix. And the reason we want to do sugar cookies is because we are adding food dye to the mix so that we can create green and blue to simulate the land and the sea that is our earth. So go ahead and do that. And then the next piece, we have our butter. You want 1 stick of butter. You want to make sure that it is softened. So it's been sitting out at room temperature for at least 30 minutes. So it's nice and soft. I can actually just squeeze it just like that with my fingers. We'll go ahead and put that in here next. This is great. You don't have to do the wet ingredients or the dry ingredients first. You can literally just throw it all in there. And I also really enjoy this recipe because it does not have any of the vegetable oil that you would make from a normal box mix. So we've got 1 egg. Egg doesn't have to be at room temperature, but you know, it can be. If you're pulling out your butter, you might as well pull out the egg too. We'll go ahead and smash it on my butter so that way I don't create a mess all over my cutting board, even though I just created a mess on my fingers. You know, it's pretty great. I love being here in the valley. I think Earth Day is so special to us because we're in the valley. We are out and about, you know, enjoying the mountains, the beautiful greenery, the flowing rivers. You know, it's just a really special place to be, especially on a day where, you know, you're being made aware of the environment and how we can better serve it. So I'm going to go ahead and blend it. We're going to make some kitchen noises, and people love the kitchen noises. So just be patient as I blend this together. I'm going to start out on low because we do have all this powder in here and we don't really want it to go all over the place. So you want to make sure that you have a large mixing bowl. And as you can see, my butter is nice at room temperature. If you wanted to start this early, you could put the butter in first and then start to really kind of break it up a little bit more before you add in the powder so it doesn't splash all over the place, but you know what? We're doing just fine. And you know what's really fun? I actually saw this great hack on Instagram. When you're using this, take a paper plate and actually just put it underneath or stick your little beaters through the paper plate so that it creates a shield around the batter that you're making. But I want to watch this and make sure that I'm doing it right. So, you know, I'm not using the paper plate trick today, but looks like a lot of fun. I might have to try that next time. We're just going to keep on blending. Now that I've started to break down my butter a little bit more, I'm actually going to increase the speed on my mixer here. And it's going a lot better than that. Now this is a cookie dough that you probably shouldn't eat raw because it has egg in it, but I'm a fan of trying all of the dough and making it. There we go. We're just going to keep on mixing. So I've got my egg, my butter. Looks great. Do a little bit faster speed. Awesome. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? We're going to go ahead and just use our hand mixer to finish it up. So I used the electric mixer to really break down that butter, but this hand mixer, this is one of my favorite ways to make a cookie, is to really do this drop dough mix. We're just going to keep on mixing it just like that. And just kind of stir it around. As you can see, the butter is starting to really integrate into the what's it called? Into the mix. Words are hard today because I am so excited to talk about decorating these wonderful Earth Day cookies. We're just going to keep on mixing. So we've got 1 stick of butter and 1 egg. We're keeping it going. It's going to take a minute to integrate this because we're not using a ton of liquid into our dough. But if you needed to, I could say you could always add a little bit of water to it just to make sure that it forms appropriately. And I think that is actually what we're going to do here. We're going to add just a little bit of water just to get the dough to form together. It's almost ready, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm just going to take a little bit here. All right. And fill it in. Now, if you wanted to add some milk to it, you could, but we're just doing, I'd say, about a fourth of a cup of water there. And we're just going to keep on mixing it together. Now, as we mix it, the best part about this is food color. So I have gel food coloring here. And the gel food coloring, I prefer a gel over a regular liquid because it just is a little bit more vibrant of a color. It's really pretty, but we're going to separate our dough into 2 halves. We're going to do a green and a blue to symbolize water and land, earth, wind, and fire. I guess we could say Captain Planet has joined us in the kitchen. Very excited to make these beautiful cookies. There we go. As you can see, the water really just kind of helps solidify our cookies together. And these are drop cookies, so it doesn't really matter what the shape turns out to be. I like to mix my butter, but it doesn't have to be perfectly mixed because as the butter helps melt while it's in the oven, it really makes it a nice, rich flavor to it. So we've got our dough. I'm going to go ahead and divide the dough into 2 different balls. All right. Nice and mixed. It looks good here. We're going to go ahead and divide it. I've got 1 bowl here. We're just going to keep it in the same bowl there. So our dough has been divided, looking good. And then we're going to add in the food coloring. Now this is going to be the fun and messy part. I've got green for earth. We're going to squeeze that in here. And I personally like to make it nice and bright, so I'm just squeezing a whole bunch in there. We'll do a little bit more, why not? And then we also have sprinkles, blue and green sprinkles, so I cannot wait for this part of it. I'm going to squeeze the blue into here. And since I already have my spatula in here with the blue, I'm going to go ahead and start mixing it. You can see that beautiful blue color. It's nice and pretty. It looks just like the ocean. It's a little harder to mix, but you know what? It's working. It's looking good. And this is the easy part and the part that's going to really make it fancy. All you do is smash the 2 colors together to make a perfect cookie. There we go. Awesome. Blue's looking good. Nice and mixed. Great. As you can see, the dough looks good there. And then I'm going to take this one and we're going to use this for the green. And just get that green color mixed all the way in there. I love the gel food coloring. You can see how bright and vibrant that it is. And it'll look really good when these cookies are baked. I might add a little bit more to the green, right? Why not? Because who doesn't like bright? I'm a big fan of the neon. As you can see in my green sweater to honor Mother Earth. I just love all that Earth has to offer us. We've got so much to be grateful for, land to play on and to enjoy. Forget all the technology. Just get outside, enjoy the sunshine. All right, looking good. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Got cookie dough on here, but we'll save that for later. So here's the easy part. Now we're just gonna take our cookies and we're gonna smash them together. Now you can, if you wanted to, you could add the sprinkles to it ahead of time, or you can just sprinkle it on top. We're just gonna take, just like that, kind of smash it together, roll it into a ball, and put it onto, maybe I shouldn't have added that much water to it, but here we are, it is what it is. If this happens again, you can just add a little bit more flour to it and it'll be just fine. But we're just adding these cookies, we're rolling it around. And then at the end, I'm gonna rinse my hands and sprinkle some of the blue and green sprinkles on it. Or you can use my cookie melon ball dropper scooper thing. I don't know what the fancy term for it is, but here we go. We're just gonna keep on going. I'm gonna keep on rolling these cookies out. They're gonna cook, they're gonna look great. And here we go. So that's basically it. That's how you make a simple Earth Day cookie. You need the butter, you need the egg, and then a simple sugar cookie mix, and that is it. I'm gonna rinse my hands, add some sprinkles to it, and then we're gonna bake them in the oven for about 10 minutes and pull them out and see how they turn out. Thanks for joining, and we'll be right back after this.
Are you someone who loves to learn and constantly learn? Well, there's a great way to learn about some of the environmental issues at hand, and that's with the Critical Root Zone podcast, and we had a chance to sit down and chat with them, so let's take a look.
Now, welcome back to the show. Our next guest is a very near and dear friend of mine and is passionate about serving our environment and just really educating people on how they can make the least amount of negative impact and the biggest amount of positive impact. Joining me today is Maris Macelis. Maris, how are you?
Hi, I'm so good. This is so awesome. It's great to see you.
Great to see you. I love that we've come so far in our friendship where we met each other through a kickboxing gym in Nashville, Tennessee, and now here we are talking about things that are even bigger picture, more important than, or not more important than talking about our environment. So you are a podcast host, you're an environmental activist. There's so many positive things about who you are, Maris, so tell us a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, this has been a passion of mine for a really long time, probably since I was a little girl. My mom taught me to care about the planet and the environment. And it's really seeped into every crevice of my life. And it started to bloom over and over again as I surrounded myself with more people that had this love and passion for taking care of the planet and really taking care of each other. And that's kind of like what led me to the work I do today. The podcast Critical Root Zone is my own baby. It's intentionally supposed to make you think a little bit deeper, hence the name Critical Root Zone. Mm-hmm. And my day job is with a nonprofit called Tennessee Environmental Council. So I'm here in Nashville still, and we're doing a lot of field work, boots on the ground, planting trees, creating pollinator habitat, and recycling roundups. But there's still this very important connection that we have to have with each other and ourselves in order to do that work. And that's kind of what my podcast is about.
Well, I think you just permeate the community with positivity and all the work that you do, between being a Lululemon ambassador and teaching kickboxing and just really encouraging the people around you. Every conversation that you have is very meaningful. So talk about Critical Root Zone podcast. How did it get started? What conversations do you discuss? Tell me more.
Thank you. Critical Root Zone is actually my second podcast. The first one was called Zero Waste Trash Talk, which was a group of friends and I that wanted to put more information out into the community about recycling or questions that we had about different things going on that in the community that was confusing. A lot of it revolved around zero waste, hence the name Zero Waste Trash Talk. And it evolved into this community driven, we had 2 or 3 events in town where people showed up and we had different community members and leaders speak on things and different organizations speak on what they did. And that's kind of what led me to get into my own podcast later in a couple of years later after the pandemic hit. And we had all of these really kind of challenging parts of life, right? Where everyone had to stop and really think about what am I doing here? What is my purpose? Right. And I thought, well, the podcast was really important to me. Unfortunately, my friends decided not to continue, and Critical Root Zone was born. Critical Root Zone is about getting to the root issues of what we know to be true, right? Like, so there's all of these things that we can do to better the planet, to, see the things happening around us and these impacts that we can make. Yet there are things that are systematically rooted in our lives around us that kind of prevent us from creating that systematic change, right? We can have cleanups and we can recycle things, but what about the front end of that? And how does that all reflect into us and our lives? So this podcast, there's a lot of different topics because sustainability, and we use this big grand word, sustainability. It just means caring about sustaining life, regenerating life, the circle of life. And my podcast is really about different stories with people that are doing the work not only for them, like for the planet and for the people around them, but for themselves, like thinking about how does this affect me and what the things that I do in my life, and how does it vibrate outside of myself into the community and into the world. So my tagline is, in order to love the planet, we have to love each other. And in order to love each other, we first have to love ourselves.
Oh, wow. That just gave me chills, and that's so true. I think you're exactly right. You bring up kind of a thoughtful conversation on your podcast, and it's around all different things. What are things that we can do better in for ourselves mentally? What can we do better to impact our community? So I love this. So Maris, tell us, what kind of guests have you had on the podcast? What can we look forward to as we continue to listen and tune in?
Absolutely. The last guest I had was actually this very interesting conversation about aquaponic cannabis farming. And
fun.
it was it is so different and so groundbreaking and so beautiful because they have this very sustainable or regenerative process, and they also care about their people in such a regenerative way, where that's really the meat of my podcast. Funny for me to say meat because I don't eat meat, right? You don't want to, what can I say?
The bones of it, the framework.
The green juice of my podcast.
There you go.
You can look forward to a couple different people I just interviewed that are doing wonderful work with the unhoused here in Nashville. People that are looking into the food systems from Feedback Nashville. I have a guest from the Tennessee, or I should say the Nashville Food Project, which they have community gardens and they teach people how to grow food, and they're actually doing a big study right now on the access to this food in the city, which is really important for systematic change. And then another guest I have on is the CEO of the Harpeth Conservancy, that do a lot of work with the wetlands or any body of water in Tennessee, which is so important because we use that for our drinking water. And with regulations going on with the EPA, they kind of lessened the protection around our wetlands. And so we learn a lot about politics with them and the science that they do, the data proven that they've done to make sure that they can go to the front lines in our legislature and fight for our wetlands. So there's a lot of good stuff coming to look out for. Critical Root Zone. You can watch it on YouTube. It's on all platforms, but the major ones, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, you'll see it there. And yeah, I've had a lot of fun, and it's been truly an honor to just get to speak with any of these people.
Well, I love all the conversations that you're having, and these are all topics that can really be translated across the U.S. as well. So exciting stuff. And then your Instagram, you give a lot of tips and tricks on your Instagram, plus all of the fun things that you do in your life. Where can we go to follow you along on social media?
Absolutely. So the podcast is at Critical Root Zone, and from there, you'll find my personal at the Maris Vibes with a Z. You'll find it from there. Thing is, I like to get down and dirty with people. It's not always about step 1, 2, and 3. It's about just getting deep. It's about being real and transparent and showing people that it's kind of challenging to be sustainable in the environment that we've created with all these technological advances that make life easier and convenient. It's tough to go back to this primitive side that we all came from. So it's just nice. It's raw. It's down to earth. And I just try to connect with people as best as I can.
Awesome. Well, I can tell you what, I certainly have enjoyed having you in my life. So it's a lot of fun to have you on this show as well, and to talk all about the things that you're doing to make some change and to create some thought change as well. We appreciate it.
So much. It's great to see you, Kim. Thank you
Awesome.
for what you do too.
Absolutely. Well, Maris, thanks for joining. We'll be right back with more on the show after this.
We want to thank you so much for tuning into your Monday morning edition of Wasatch Weekends. I've been your host, Maddie Evans. Now, don't forget to get out there and do something a little extra kind for Mother Earth today, since it is Earth Day, and there's no better way to celebrate than maybe laying in some grass or taking your dog for a beautiful walk. Just get out there and enjoy all of our beautiful surroundings. I can't wait to see you next time right here on Wasatch Weekends.